Okay, I need to give myself a couple of new C-planes to work with. I need one for the top of the stone, top of the prong, and one for the bottom of the prong to draw my sections in location. So, C-plane, set C-plane to object. I'm going to carefully click on the ISO curves here and make sure that it sets it to that surface. Okay. Now, because I had my C-planes properly aligned, my 45 front, my 45 top, Rhino used my C-planes when it made this pipe. Had I made this pipe using a different C-plane, okay, I'm going to demonstrate. Let's say I had the top C-plane active, and I made the same pipe. One millimeter at the top, 0.8 at the bottom. Okay. Actually, it's going to rotate them for me. Doggone it. Okay, fine. I'll just keep the original. What Rhino will often do is it'll often orient these caps to the current C-plane. And it's because I'm live doing a tutorial, it's not going to do it for me here. But trust me, when you're modeling, yeah, nope, it's going to be good as gold. Fine. Since I can't make it misbehave, I'm going to set it up to misbehave automatically, just so you have an example. Setting my C-plane here for now. Going to extract a surface, copy equals no. You do not need to do this with your work. If you're following along, just watch. Going to rotate that 45 degrees. And since it's a round prong, that will fit right back on. Okay. And now I'll go back to 45 front. This is the orientation that I would normally get if I'm using Rhino's set C-planes, which is very upsetting because when I try and set a C-plane to it, I get that, which is not useful. Not useful to me at all. Okay? If that happens to you, you go back to your 45 top. I drew this curve as part of our tutorial, but you would draw it for the first time. For example, just draw a straight line both sides, nice and long. And then I would project that onto the prong. Delete input yes. Like so. Then I'd go back to 45 front, and you'll see that I have a nice outline going all the way around. That's actually a nice thing to have, so it's worth doing anyway, even if your cap is properly aligned. But now my cap is not. As we know, I did that on purpose. C-plane. Going to set the C-plane to the cap. And now I want to be able to rotate that cap. Okay? And the challenge is going to be is what axis am I rotating from? And we'll see what I mean in a second here. I am going to C-plane, rotate C-plane. Center of axis, I want it to be 0 according to this new C-plane, which is right here in the middle. So that's fine. Just 0, 0, 0. And you should be able to just type in 0. Okay. Now, end of rotation axis. You need... Okay, let's do this again. Start fresh because something strange happened. 0 for the beginning. Alright. We need to give it a axis. it would be the color, it would be the line that's you can't see, which is the Z once again. If you can see green and you can see red, you want blue, which is Z. Hit Z. Angle or first reference, hold Shift key. And you can decide at this point where you want things to go, but it doesn't really matter as far as the orientation of the X and the Y. You just need the whole grain of the grid to rotate. So click and then use end snap. And there you go. Okay. So the bottom we won't have to go through that much trouble, but I wanted to show you what you may have to do. Once you have a C-plane set to the top and it's lined up in a nice 45-degree angle so that it lines up with the rest of your model, save it. Prong top. Okay. Going to turn off that reference and bring in the reverse tapered example. 45 top. I want to put that same frame that we have around this surface, so I'm going to draw that curve again. That line from 0, both sides, plenty long, project onto this maquette. Just so we have it for both. We now have a nice drawing, basically, of the two tapers. I'm going to set the bottom C-plane to the bottom surface. And as our top was originally before I messed with it, this is already lined up properly. You can see if you line your grid up that the axes pass right through it. Very nice. And I will save this as prong bottom. Okay. What I just said is worth revisiting. I said that in order to make sure that the bottom of the cap here, the surface I'm going to orient my C-plane to, is properly aligned for what I want it to do, I checked it against my 45 top C-plane. Okay, and you can see that I can rotate that grid so it lines up, so I knew it would work out fine. An example again of that not working out fine is if I come to this top one that I repositioned, there is no way I can rotate these so that any of those grid lines will line up with the grain of that cap. In fact, it's clearly at a 45-degree angle from any of the grid lines. There's just no way I can make it work. Okay, so that's, whereas this lines up really nicely. So that's why I had to rotate that top C-plane around. Okay. Alright, so we've talked about how to make maquettes for the prong, the two different tapers. We've created 4 C-planes, a generic 45 top, 45 front, one for the top of the prong, one for the bottom of the prong. We've talked about what happens if you end up with a malaligned cap, if your cap ends up skewed from what you wanted, how to go ahead and rotate that C-plane. Once you have to set it to the cap first before you can rotate it. But so if you have a cap that's poorly aligned, once again like this one was, because I made it that way, you would set your C-plane to the top first, and then you would rotate your grid, your C-plane, into the proper orientation. You would want to have some kind of reference geometry to snap to. which we did here, and it would just be a rotate C-plane command, set to 0 for your center of rotation, the Z-axis, so you're looking right down on it, a shift key for your where it is now reference point, and an end snap for the where you want it to end up reference. Okay, sorry to go through that again, but just wanted to make sure you understood. So that's what we've covered so far. Let's go ahead now and draw the prong.